possibility that there is a creator. Eid Mubarak Akhi. Taqabbalallahu minna wa minkum. Eid Mubarak Akhi. Rather than typical arguments that you hear from people, because not everyone has same kind of demands. Some people might say, look, I want to see God with my own eyes, then I will believe. And even if they saw something and that something said I'm God, you'll find these people won't believe. Okay? The Quran actually makes this kind of response to arguments like this. There are people who say if there were stairs ascending up to the sky, they will say our eyes are bedazzled. We are deluded. We have been, under an illusion of some kind. They would not believe. They'll try to make some excuses. So some people, even at the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, or other prophets even before, they demanded a higher level of proof like this, like I want to hear God directly. When they saw clear evidences of many kind, their response was, this is magic. This is magic. It's purely magic. So they found a way of showing their excuse and saying, oh no, that's magic. You made a trick, some kind of act of magic on us. We're not going to believe. So that means they weren't sincere in the first place. Because if they saw, for example, the Red Sea, perhaps, one of the seas that was parted and there was an open, dry path going across, and Prophet Moses took the Israelites safely across the other side, and he had the Egyptians, the army of the Pharaoh, trying to follow through. They could see it, and they didn't just say, oh, it's magic. They actually went through chasing them. If they just believed in magic, they would have said, I'm not going to go in the middle of the ocean, and we're going to all be drowned. They followed through in dry land because it's parted. But in the middle, of course, the sea overcame them from all sides, and they were drowned. And then some of them, even including Pharaoh, says, now I believe. But God tells us that at that point, it's not acceptable. When death comes to you and you say, now I believe, this belief is not acceptable. It's not acceptable from you. Because now you realize the truth. The truth is clear, evident in front of you. There is no question about belief. Belief is out of the window now. It's about, you have certainty of knowledge that this is the truth. At that point, a belief is not acceptable. So in this life, we are placed with our intellectual faculty to arrive at our intellectual conviction about God, about the truthfulness of the Prophet and the truthfulness of the scripture they bring. That's where our faith comes in, based on our conviction, intellectual conviction. If God so wanted, He could have made everyone the believer. Everyone believed in Him. And everyone did everything exactly like Allah wanted them to. But would there be a role of free will anymore? There won't be. Because you will be doing what God wants you to do. You can't do anything other than that. So you will not have any free will.
Your crowd now.
So you will have a free. Do you understand? You won't have any free will anymore. But you and I will accept that we have some amount of free will. Because we have free will, there are some people who would exercise this free will in a good way and others won't. You know how a knife can be used to, chop your vegetables and your fruits or kill someone, depending on what you use. The knife itself is not evil in itself. It's just a tool, but how you use it makes it, the action, evil. So some people will use the faculty of their free will that God has given and use it wrongly to oppress people, to torture people, to be unjust to people, to deceive people, to lie to people, to kill people, to murder, to rape, and all these evil things. Okay? And others will stay away from all of these things, even though they have the free will to do that. They won't do it, because God has given them a code of life which is more noble, more just, more, fulfilling to live our life in this life, rather than be like a selfish, arrogant individual who is just after the self-interest. Doesn't matter if it means killing others and robbing others of their wealth and their pleasures. Yeah, some people, when they rape, because they can't get this in a legal way of marriage, for example, they cannot get this man or woman, and they want to force them on the other person, and they want to deprive the other person's right and choice and their pleasure, and they want to impose their pleasure on them and take it forcefully. That's clearly wrong. That's how, you are so selfish and unjust and, totally, like an animal. Even animals don't, they behave better ways, right? So when you examine the belief system, you will see that if you concentrate to the very core teaching of religion, you will come to know that the religion has always been one. The religion has always been the same from God, because there has only been one creator, and there has to be one creator. If there was more than one creator, you're trying to understand, had there been more than one creator, you know what's going to happen to this world now?
Conflicts.
There will be chaos.
Yes.
One creator says, I want rain right now. BBC says 5 o'clock, right? It's 3 o'clock. And the other creator says, I want full sunshine. And the other creator says, no, I want now, day. Another says, I want night. I'm just giving you some example about weather, right? What's going to happen? You can't have all of this simultaneously and at the same time. It's not going to be possible. So because this universe and the workings of the universe demonstrate towards the working of a unified organizer, unified planner, unified designer, it is only reasonable to accept that there is one creator, one designer, one originator, one intelligence, one God. So when you think about how do I know all of these things, you read the universe and you will see the universe will tell you. Do we have evidence for gravitons, the gravitational particles? We don't. Well, not to my knowledge today. I haven't been reading for a little while, but I don't think we have discovered gravitational particles. It's still a theory based on gravitational waves and forces where there is a pull between two objects. So a heavier object, for example, if it's a bigger mass and so on, it will pull the smaller objects towards itself. Like the Earth is all pulling towards the center of it. Okay, that's why we don't fly over. We are still, if you jump, we fall. Newton's apple didn't go up the sky; it fell. Okay, that's how he was able to, come up with these laws of gravitation and so on. So the fact that we don't see gravity, but we see the effect of it. The effect. We don't see it.
Yeah.
If you look at, we can't see it with our five senses. The effects is proof enough the gravity is real.
Yeah.
So if you examine this world, this cosmos, the effect that the creator designer has within the universe is proof itself of the creator, of the designer. You don't have to see the designer to believe in it. The effect is there. The organization is there. The planning is there. The constants of our universe. These constants didn't just come about by some random chance. That's what people believe. Randomness don't generate precision. In which laboratory that random accidents generated the next generation of your technological tools, whether your watch, your phones, your computers, your aeroplanes, your fast cars, none of them cannot generate things like that.
Part of this argument is that you believe that God exists, who's incredibly powerful, incredibly intelligent, he just exists uncaused.
No, that's not my argument. My argument is something different.
He's designer.
No, my argument is, if you look at this universe,
Designer.
you see.
The designer doesn't need a designer.
Okay. Is your question
Why should the universe?
Sure. Is your question meaningful?
Yes.
Okay. So, let me ask you a similar question. Who is the father of Santa Claus?
He invented Santa Claus.
Okay. So if I ask a question like who's the father of Santa Claus when Santa Claus doesn't exist, the question is not meaningful. If you don't believe God exists, then ask who created God. It's not a meaningful question.
It's a philosophical question.
No, it's not a meaningful question from your side.
It's a logical question because you all want to believe there's a creator who's incredibly powerful, incredibly intelligent, just exists uncaused. At the same time, you claim the universe, which is far simpler, cannot exist uncaused. That's
I was only. It's not. I'll tell you
it's a contradiction.
Allow me to explain
why.
why.
One thing to exist uncaused for God, but not the universe.
No, allow me to explain. If you are going to ask a question, the question that you should ask should be meaningful to you.
It is.
Good. Do you believe in a God?
No.
Okay. So, asking who created this God that doesn't exist Is that a meaningful question?
I'm pointing the logic of God is flawed. The logical arguments for God are flawed. That's why I don't believe in God.
Please,
because
listen.
the logic for God is flawed.
Excuse me.
It's a logical
Remember,
argument for God, and it's flawed.
I want to understand whether the question you ask is meaningful to you.
It is.
Right. So you don't believe in a God that exists, right? Right. So if you then ask, who created this God that doesn't exist? How am I supposed to answer? Tell me.
You're supposed to give me some way.
Wait. So let me answer the question. You asked, who created the God that doesn't exist?
You were talking to her about the universe. So basically, the universe
see,
needs
look,
to decide. You said the universe
Allow me
needs to decide.
to answer your question.
Yes, you won't say that God needs to decide.
Can I answer your question?
So your question is illogical. Your logic is illogical.
No, please. Can I answer your question? Okay. Who created the God that doesn't exist?
Nobody doesn't exist.
I'm answering your question. Why you not allow me, giving me the chance? So your question is this: who created God that doesn't exist? Now, to me, a question, if you're going to ask me, has to have some meaning. It must have potential answers. It must allow me to finish, and it must be free from contradictions.
Yes.
Any question, to be a question, must have two essential properties. One of them is it must be free from contradiction. It must have potential answers. If it doesn't have potential answers, it's not a question. It's a rhetorical statement. Okay. So let's see whether your question has those two potential answers or criteria, whether it's free from any defects. Who created the creator that doesn't exist? Now, this question is defective because it is asking me to answer about something that doesn't exist that was a creator of. So it's a contradiction within itself. Allow me to finish. Who created God that doesn't exist? If something doesn't exist, the question is, asking who created it is actually meaningless because that thing doesn't exist. You cannot ask who created that doesn't exist. So your question is defective. It's not a question at all.
I was saying that the universe needs to decide.
No, listen.
God needs to decide.
If you're going to ask a question, I would expect you asking me.
God does not need to be a designer. The universe does not need a designer. That's my question. That's my point.
My friend,
do you agree?
Do you agree? Your question is meaningless.
Can exist uncaused.
Do you agree? Your question is meaningless to you?
No, it's perfectly meaningful.
Okay. So imagine now I ask you a question. Who is the father of something that doesn't exist?
Nothing.
No one. Okay, so I answered the same way. God was not created by anyone.
Yes, he was.
Good. So let me continue now. I answered the answer. God was is uncreated. That's what we claim anyway. God is uncreated and has to be uncreated. So let me.
The universe has to be created.
Excuse me, please.
Which is a
I've answered. Look, I've answered your
No,
question.
you have not. Because you avoid the contradiction. You avoid the point.
Okay.
If God can
May I
exist
ask
uncaused,
everyone else
the universe
here,
can exist
did I
uncaused.
answer his question?
Yes, you did.
No, you did not.
Contradicting yourself.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No,
I
you're
said,
Perfectly logical points.
I used, brother, I used,
Against her, God has to exist.
excuse me, allow me to finish. Allow me to finish.
It's like saying
I
the universe is the creator.
answered
But the universe doesn't.
exact same way that you answered. So I actually borrowed the answer from you.
No, you did not.
I did.
Conversation started because I'm agnostic. He's not trying to convince me. I'm learning. There's no
Yes, but I'm pointing out logical contradiction here. He's trying to say that the universe needs a designer. And I'm saying if God can exist without a designer, the universe can exist without a designer.
The reality is,
He's avoiding the question.
the reality is the universe is not self-conscious.
So what?
I only opened my mouth and haven't finished my sentence yet. Okay?
Yeah, so what?
You see, if you let me finish, then you will understand why. Do you understand? Good. So, the universe is not believed by atheists, scientists, humanists, secularists, or agnostic to be something that possesses consciousness, self-awareness, intelligence, will, four qualities. They don't believe any of that. So the universe doesn't have a brain of any kind. Because we say brain to someone like a biological system, which thinks and organizes and plans and reflects and so on, right? So when we say about awareness, something that is making you aware that you're in existence, that you have knowledge of yourself and your surroundings. Okay, so the universe doesn't have any of that. It doesn't even know that it exists. It doesn't have this awareness that it exists. Neither it has the will to do something, because it doesn't know that it exists. It can't do anything. It doesn't have the power to do anything. So this universe doesn't have any of these things for it to do anything, because it's simple.
Quantum physics makes things happen.
This universe doesn't have. This universe doesn't have a will.
It doesn't need one.
Because it doesn't have a will,
It needs a will.
so it cannot do anything by
it can.
itself.
It does. It does. Things just happen.
When the universe does something, does it know what it's doing? Does it know? So it does things not knowing it. Let's understand, brother, just understand one thing. Universe does certain things. Does it know it's doing it?
No.
It's not. So how do you know universe is doing it?
It is doing it. You can see it.
No. Just is, it's not an explanation.
You can see it doing it. It can.
No. Just is, it's not an explanation. If I say, like, my proof that God exists is He exists. It just is. Would you accept that as an explanation, a proof? Would you? Right. So I am not going to accept your "it just is" as a proof or an explanation. So now tell me, please kindly, why do you say the universe is doing things that you claim it does?
Quantum physics.
Sorry?
You understand quantum physics. Quantum physics explains it all.
Quantum physics.
Why?
So I have to now assume you understand quantum physics, right?
Reasonably well.
Good.
Well enough.
Okay.
Well enough.
If some things are not in existence, very important, I want you to focus on it. If some things like particles, virtual particles, like not particles, subatomic particles, or even if you break down, gluons, hadrons, leptons, sorry for the jargons, right? Okay, these are very, very tiny. Okay, we're talking about in terms of quarks and so on. My knowledge of subatomic particles, excuse me, please, it's not very good because I am not a physicist. Okay, but one can read about it if they want to. So, if those things were non-existent in the first place, non-existent means they did not exist at all. Can they pop into existence while they were non-existent?
If there's energy around, yes. I think virtual particles can pop into existence temporarily.
Sorry?
Very quickly.
So if they're non-existent, meaning they did not exist, you know what that means? Let me tell you what is a non-existence, an example of a non-existence. Do you know what this rock dream of?
What?
What does this rock dream of? Nothing. This rock dreams of nothing. That nothing, we know, is a non-existent thing. This rock dreams of something that doesn't exist, because rocks don't dream. So that nothing, imagine it was nothing like that to begin with. Non-existence, nothing. Can this nothing bring itself into existence and become all these quantum particles? I'm saying, can it? According to your physics and quantum physics.
It can. Here.
Brother, one moment, please. If something...
It can because we're here, which means we believe in God.
No, it's a problem with God.
Listen.
If you think God exists, you're saying that something does exist.
Excuse me.
God is a something.
I want to I want you to focus on this point.
I understand the question. I understand it fine. When I think about this one. Because the problem is...
Can I have your answer again?
We don't know how the universe came into being. We don't know that.
That's not my question.
This
Don't
is.
create a strawman argument. Logical
We don't know,
fallacy.
we don't know.
You see,
Okay,
people's
but-
comfort zone is creating strawman arguments and saying,
No.
you know what, and soon
What
I
we
can
do-
guarantee he'll move into evolution. Because that's another comfort zone.
No.
What I asked you with all due respect is something like this. If something is non-existent, it doesn't exist at all. It's absolutely nothing. Absolute nothingness. Can this absolute nothingness then do something or become something?
No, it can't. We're here. It must be
How? Tell me now
We
through
don't
the...
know how.
No, tell me, listen.
You just can
This is the
exist.
point of
Excuse me,
God.
Does exist.
listen.
This is the point of God. No, this is
Tell-
the point of God.
tell
because
me, brother,
you don't
listen.
know how, and you're saying exactly the same about
Tell
our
me
universe
from your knowledge of
going to
quantum physics
No, what you're saying
how non-existent can become existence.
because special particles